Hi guys, welcome back to another video for Android Basics course with Kotlin. So in today's video, we are going to do testing with Hilt. So if you remember, we have already added Hilt here, and we also have one instrumentation test which runs the app and test whether the UI is working properly, the labels are getting displayed, and when we go to the details fragment, whether the text in details fragment is also correctly displayed or not. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to add Hilt, and then we're going to add a fake module which will actually replace the service that is coming from the actual server to our local JSON object. So I've not prepared anything. Let's go by just following the documentation. So okay, so we'll go to Hilt testing guide. So I'll attach this link in the video. So if you see, we're not really concerned about unit test, but more about end-to-end test. So for integration test, we'll need to add some dependencies first. So let's just add them here. So these are for instrumentation test. You can see for if you're writing unit test with RoboElectric, which can provide like a mock Android platform, then you will need these dependencies. But for now, let's just go with instrumented dependencies. So here is our Android test dependencies. Let's just separate it out for a while and then sync now. So while that is happening, let's see what else we need to do. So we'll need to add these rules here to our test case. So I think we'll have to wait for the sync to get completed. And then we will also need this test application. Okay, so we need this new instrumented test runner because Hilt will have its own test application. So let's do that. Create this class, custom test runner. So please ensure that all these things that you are creating are under Android test folder and not under main folder. So this custom test runner is actually extending from Android test runner, Android JUnit runner, and this will actually ensure this class will actually run the instrumented test case. So that is why we are extending it and then telling it to use this test application instead of the generated one. So let's import all the dependencies, and now we need to use this. So for that, you need to go to build.gradle of the app. You can see here we have this test instrumentation runner, which is Android X test runner. So we need to replace it with custom test runner, and don't forget to update the package also. Okay, yeah, build Gradle for the app. Okay, let's see now. So this has actually replaced the test runner. And now if you remember, we also need to go and update this. So this will not it will actually be a Hilt. So Hilt Android test, and we need to add another rule which is actually Hilt Android rule. So let's go back and copy that. So we already have another rule, so let's see what we need to do. So if we have multiple rules, we need to use this way. So we need to chain the rules. So let's do that here. Okay, let's go back to UI test setup. So yeah, we were here. we have replaced this and we've created this custom runner, and yeah, this is actually our inner rule. So let me just get this. Yeah, I don't know why they have used get. It should work without that also. So we have created the custom runner. We have added the annotations for test, and we have also added the annotation. We also updated the test runner in the build gradle. So let's rerun the test case and see if the test case still works. Okay. So the test is running now. You can see. So we saw the test was running, but still what happens is when the test is running, it actually connects to the actual server, the backend service, which might not be an ideal case for all the applications and all the, because you might have to do login, you might have to get OTP, and then you can't really automate those flows. So the answer for those scenarios is to get those, record those network calls and put them in a JSON file and build a mock HTTP server. So let's do that. So for that, to build a mock web server, we are actually going to use it from okhttp. So okhttp has a mock web server, and where you can actually enqueue some responses. So you have this default mock web server where you can enqueue the responses from string or JSON files, and you can even set the URL. So so if you want to get the base URL from back from the server, this is how you do it. So this server.url will actually give you the full URL, which you can later use. And then we also have this option of recording request and verifying whether an actual request, whether your app is making a correct request or not. And then finally you have this dispatcher. So if suppose you're not able to enqueue responses because your app, depending on the UI events, your app behaves differently. So then you can have this switch case based dispatcher, or when, if you're writing it in Kotlin, where you can check the path and the method, HTTP method that your app is requesting, and based on the path and the method, you can reply with certain responses. So if it is an auth call, you reply with 200. If it's a version call, you reply with version number. Or if it's a profile call, you reply with some mock profile. Otherwise, you can reply with 404 not found. And then, yeah. So this is how you do it. So let's add this implementation. So we are actually using Android test. So let's first add it to our build file, just at the bottom. So to use this properly, we'll also have to add okhttp as a client in our application. So let's do that also. So we will also start using Square HTTP. It's just an HTTP client. It's still optional, as you have seen, but it's better to have it. So let's go back. And let's add it to Android test also. After we do this, so whenever we are initializing retrofit, if you remember in our module, we will go and update it. So instead of just initializing the retrofit module, we'll also set the client. So if you see, there is a client option here where you can pass the okhttp client. So we are going to add a logging interceptor. So basically, this should only be done for debug apps. So whenever you have you're running it inside debug or in debug mode, then you can actually add this. So let me just show you. So this is basically client builder if build config.debug. So this is our build config. Okay, don't use any other apps build config. So add network interceptor. This is actually HTTP. We actually need an HTTP logger. I believe we need to import that also. So okay, so let's find it. It's not coming like this. Okay. We are actually looking it inside Square. So let's go back to Square. Okay, too many repositories. Go inside. Okay, HTTP. Okay, it's here. It's not a separate repository, it's inside that. So you can see here, we need to add this. Okay, let's go back to Studio. So this should give us the HTTP logging interceptor, which is a small class built by okhttp itself. So you can add your own interceptor. Basically, if you're having an OAuth implementation, you will mostly be adding a network interceptor to intercept any challenges that the server sends you, so that you can prompt the login screen again and ask the user for password or maybe his fingerprint or something like that. So you can even update and extend this class if you want to do it. Like if you want to print to timber instead of log, you can do that here. So we'll just use this normal stuff. So yeah, this is done. So this is HTTP login interceptor dot set level. Don't know what is that level. Okay, this should come from login interceptor dot body. So we are going to log everything. So if you do basic, it will only log the network request and headers and response. But if you do body, everything will get logged. And this will be then client builder dot build. Okay, so now our OKHTTP client is also set up. Let's just run it to make sure everything is working. So we'll go step by step. We will keep testing. So this is also called test driven development. So you write the test case at the beginning and then you keep implementing to make sure that the test cases pass, or test case or the failing test cases are now passing. So you should not go back to failing test case, but you should always ensure that more and more test cases keep passing. It's running. So it's installing now and launching the test. So if you remember, it will launch your app and it will install one more APK which actually contains the test code. Let's see, it is running. It will check for Russell wide, then it will scroll down, click the last one and verify the details. So yeah, test is still passing. And now if you go to logcat and actually look for OKHTTP, you can see it has printed the response that it got from the server. So if you're not able to generate the JSONs, you can actually use this logging interceptor to copy this JSON response and create the JSON file. So I already have the file locally. So let me just find it. So I have this JSON file which is actually served by that server. I'll come and create. Okay, this has, I don't want a scratch file. I want a directory which is actually assets directory. Okay, I've already copied the file. I can just paste it. Now I have this JSON file, that is the actual file which is getting served from the server and through which we are able to display the UI. So now I have it locally, and this is the file that I will use to serve from my local server. Okay, so now that we have the mock server integrated and the tests are also running fine, let's go and start it up. So we have the JSON file. Let's start up the mock server so that we can start serving things from there. So let's go to our test case. You can do it in a base test case also to avoid like adding this code everywhere. So we are going to do this for all the tests that you will run as part of your test case. So we will do it like once per test file or test class. So this is actually before class, I guess. And yeah, JVM static setup. Let's just mark it as late in it. Okay. Yeah, let's keep it nullable. It's not allowing. Maybe that's why. Okay, mock web server. And here, if you want, you can set a dispatcher, but we don't need that. So we just need to set the response. That will actually be a mock response dot set body. So you can actually keep the body as a string. You can keep the full JSON file as a string also. It's a short one. Or you can first set the response and then set body. For set body, we'll need to add one method basically to get the file from assets and convert it to strings. So let me just get it. So I'll create one more file called file reader, and we'll write a method get a string from file. So this would be of type object so that it is a static one. And it would be function get string from file, and then file name is the input, and it's going to return a string. So basically, what we will do is assets folder actually requires or provides us a functionality where you can get the file as a stream. So we'll use that stream and we will read it and we'll convert it to a string. So this is the file. I copy pasted the code just to make it faster. So we actually need to get this assets.open. So this open actually will return the input stream. So one thing to notice is that you might have two instrumentations. So one is instrumentation registry.get instrumentation dot context, and one is actually you see here We also have target context. So difference between context and target context, context will run on the application test code. So we are creating one more app for which contains the application text code. So if you go to build and you see outputs APK, you can see there are two APKs that are being generated. One is the debug APK and one is the app debug Android test APK. So our assets folder, which is under Android test, will get packaged inside Android test APK. So our context has to be this context. If you want to access something from the target app, like app debug APK, then you need to use the target context APK. Sometimes like you might want to access strings or files or colors from target app. So then you are required to use the target context. So for now, this is fine. And let's go back to our test case actually. And when we call set body, we can just add that code here. File reader dot string from file. File name is customers.json. And then mockwebserver dot start. You can actually provide the port and the path, but let's keep it like that. And yeah, so this will get initialized one time for this full class. So let's also do one thing. Let's store the URL so that we can use it later. So base URL. Okay, there was a way to get the base URL. Let's do that. Web server. Okay, server.url. Basically URL. We just need this actually. And we will assign it to base URL. Okay, so that is the HTTP URL. Let's just change it to string. Okay, not sure, but yeah, should work. Now, the second thing that we need to do is if you remember, our Hilt application actually uses the customer module where we are providing this customer service. So now when we are running the application, we want to change this base URL. So instead of using this module, we'll actually create a fake module and then we will replace it. So the code is actually given here. So testing features. So yeah, replace a binding. Basically, we have this install in, if you remember, and we will have to create this fake module, which will be test installer. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, our activity test. So remember, we had used activity retained component. Apart from that, we also need to, okay, sorry. We also need to uninstall the original component. So testing features, replace a binding, uninstall modules. So here, this is our old module, the customer module class. So we are actually using provides, and this actually we can copy paste from here. You can again create a base class where you can have all these code so that you don't have to really worry about it in all the test cases that you're writing. So here, instead of this URL, this will actually be our base URL, which is coming from our companion object. If you really want to make sure, you can actually write like this. Just in case you have like multiple classes which have this base URL variable. Okay. For this test case, we will uninstall customer module and we will install this test module, which will serve the file from our mock web server. Okay. Still seems to be some error. Okay. Yeah, let's run it again and see if it works. Okay, so we've got an error. I think this is mostly because of this abstract. I'll just remove it and then again. And I'll also open the logcat, see what is happening. You can see the tests are running. Basically, it's making the call to mock web server, but there is some customers.json where the application context is null. Okay, and our test case is failing. So this is basically telling us that the view was not found. Okay, let's see what is happening. Okay, so I was able to remove the dot application context and it ran, but now the problem is that we are getting a network error with because we are trying the mock server by default uses HTTP like clear text communication. It doesn't use SSL. So let me show you the unknown service exception. Clear text communication to localhost not permitted by network security policy. So by default, I think after API 23, Android has stopped supporting clear text by default. So if your app does not have a network security policy, which allows HTTP communication, then the emulator or the phone is going to block it. So there are two ways to overcome this problem. Either you can add SSL certificates to mock web server by creating your own self-signed one and just adding them. That works. Or you can create a debug network policy which can overcome that. So let's do that first. Search for network security config. So this is not the recommended way. The recommended way is to add the SSL certificates to your mock web server, and we'll just show you both things. So basically, we have this network security configuration file where we do this. So we'll do this only for debug. So just to make sure and to tell you. So source new directory, X. So debug resource, and inside that we will have Android resource file. This is XML, and name is network security config. Okay, network security config. This file is created. Let's get the value. So basically, this is what we are trying to achieve. And we will just enable it for localhost. So we'll make it true. And here, we'll just give the domain as localhost. So you can just enable HTTP traffic for these many locales. And now we need to use it. So that would be done here. So network security config @XML network security config. So this is for debug. So we've already created only for debug. So when you go to release, you will have to create one more manifest, which will not have this parameter. So just to show you, I'm doing this. So here the tests are running now, and you can see it is now working. It's able to communicate with our local web server using clear text. So if you go to the logs and search for okhttp client, you can see that the response is coming from our local host 48799, and not from our actual server, and it is on HTTP protocol. So this is one way of solving this. When I update this code on the GitHub, I'll actually add the certificates part that is coming from okhttp-tls 3 library. So basically, okhttp also has a SSL library, and you can use these methods to actually create the self-signed certificates, add it to the mock web server using these methods, so that you don't have to mess around with network policy. If you need a separate video for that, just let me know. Thank you for watching.